Good morning from Chicago traders. It's 8:01 a.m. on Tuesday, the 27th of July, 2021. This is episode number 2042. Thanks for joining me today. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's where we stand this morning. We have a mild risk off as the overall risk posture for the overnight session today, as we come into one of the busiest days of the earnings season. Pre-market, we already got earnings from 3M, which surprised by 14%. General Electric, GE, surprised by 25%. And then we're looking for UPS, which surprised by 8.54%. And then we're looking for AMD, Mondelez, Visa, Google, Starbucks, Microsoft, and Apple today after the close. Very, very busy market after the close today. And that rolls us into tomorrow, which is the FOMC rate decision and press conference. Tomorrow, Wednesday, July 28th, those will be coming out at 2 p.m., the Fed interest rate decision and the press conference at 2:30 p.m. Tomorrow, we're also looking for GfK consumer confidence. And then this morning, you know what? This morning, I did fail to update this. Let's get rid of that because it's misinformation. Let's correct it. We did get durable goods this morning, and we're looking. Case-Shiller just came out, Case-Shiller Home Price Index, and we're looking for consumer confidence at 10 a.m. Eastern, consumer confidence. And then after the close, we get the API crude oil stock change, which actually has been a mover recently. Consensus is for a draw of 3.433 million barrels. That's where that stands. Currently, the S&P has traded 199,000 contracts. Relatively busy morning as we trade above the common volume over the last 252 days statistically, with a range of 25.5 points. The overnight inventory is 100% short. What that means simply is that the volume that has traded since the open of today's session, which occurred at 6 p.m. yesterday evening, for today's session, 100% of that volume occurred below the settlement price, or below the closing price, really. And so the entire inventory is short versus the prior day's close. So that's where that stands. We're seeing that the Russell is the weakest link here, down 14 points, has been holding steady at 2,200 for a price. That's about 14 points below yesterday's close, has been trending down through the overnight session, put in a somewhat of a V-bottom higher low, and is snaking around its VWAP and overnight point of control so far in the Russell. That's the weakest link. The German DAX, Euro stocks are also weak as the inflation forecast in Europe is raised. Again, earnings. The other news this morning is the Chinese tech stocks getting pummeled, seeing a low as China cracks down on tech firms, especially those with public ownership, imposing fines, restrictions, and things like that. And that pretty much wraps up what we have going for ourselves. Don't forget, as you're looking at this thing in front of you, don't forget the importance of this. This is giving you the most recent rotations for each product. This is what's considered a normal rotation for that product. Right now, the S&P, based on 1-minute data going back 20 sessions, that's about 700 rotations or so. 4.5 points is the normal rotation. So if your stop is inside of that, you need to be a lot more accurate. So that's where that stands. Interesting viewership this morning, very low numbers. I wonder if I did not post. Did we forget to post the event? Anyway, so that's where we stand this morning. Looking for a pretty busy morning today. Here's what was expected yesterday. What you're looking at is yesterday's trader bite. The main idea yesterday is that we would push up. I was looking for a small pullback. I was looking for it to push up. Remember, expecting a small pullback is the result of the most recent auction magnet, which is the overnight point of control, and then we're looking for it to push. And remember, if I'm predicting a pullback, then I am predicting a lower high, because at the end of the day, it's about what the daily range is expected to be, and that daily range is based on a 1 standard deviation study of prior ranges, the most recent ranges. So yesterday was looking for it to open up, have a small pullback, was looking for, if you recall, 44.15. 44.15 was the projected high, was looking for it to actually finish relatively close to where we were the prior session, and that's really was looking for an overlap in the prior day's close. I was looking for a close on top of a close after putting in a higher low, higher high in the price action. So that was yesterday's prediction. Here's what actually happened. Good morning, everyone. Here's what actually happened. This is what things look like. Let's get rid of some of these lines and clean this chart up. We instead opened at 43.98. I put that 98 on the chart. And then we had somewhat of a driving open. And no pullback. And what that does is it kind of throws a wrench in things a little bit, as it's better, it's easier to trade the long side when we have a pullback. Why? Because we get a lot of information from a pullback. As the market pulls back, we can see what the participation is on the sell side. It gives us more security in that the sell side has been tested and did not hold, and now the market's starting to turn and push higher. It gives us a lot more confidence. It gives big traders, it gives everybody that's looking to trade more confidence seeing failure on the sell side. When it opens strong at all-time highs, it makes it difficult to find what I would call a reasonable spot to get long, because we have very little to lean against. Because on a pullback, we form a structure that now we trade again. And so just to the left of us, we have very, very fresh information to lean against, volume information, zippers, things like that to lean against, to get a good R factor, to get good risk reward on our long position. The overall trade per the scenarios is long. The primary scenario is long. The idea is we're likely to push yesterday's high at 44.08. We're likely to push the overnight high at 44.07, I think is what it was. We're looking for that to get pushed, but if it opens and pushes immediately higher, it's a missed opportunity. It's almost a stolen opportunity, as many traders would say. And what we ended up with is just that, a quick push higher. So we didn't have a pullback to the overnight point of control of that session at 90.50. Was looking for it to kind of come back, consolidate, and give us a high. And what it does is it generally pulls back, tests, and then creates a retest with a higher low, a nice little zipper to lean against for a breakout long. That's the setup that I'm looking for. There you have it. You have a setup. And that gets us long, and it gets us really clear targets. The prior day settlement, 44.04, 03, the 44.08 high, and then the 44.15 top. 44.15 top is what we're looking for on this, and unfortunately we couldn't get that until much later in the session. And even then, so you see this formation here, the zipper formation here is a consolidation that could be the fuel, and you could see the fuel in it right here in the form of a volume profile. Look, if you don't have volume profiling by now, you really ought to get a good platform that has that. I'm always going to recommend the platform that I use, which is Edge Pro X or Investor RT for the big picture. Edge Pro X for short-term active trading. It has all this stuff in there. And so we see the fuel, and so the expectation is we've tested the high, pulled back, higher low, lower high. We have a zipper here, and now we're looking for it to drop. In that case, we're looking for it to push through to 43.90, 43.8875 on the singles, and then the prior high of 43.8450 for a test of the prior high. That's a natural occurrence in the auction for it to do that. But instead, it breaks the zipper down, takes out the IB low by one tick, and we have a failed auction, one tick failed auction, higher low, gives us a breakout long trade. If you're paying attention, it gives us a breakout long trade for finally to get the prior high, the IB high, go neutral and shoot for 15. And that was the key trade of the day. Very easy to miss. The secondary trade is the pullback to prior support right here. You can see the 44.04 against the prior settlement close, and this is where VWAP and mid were. So this area here had a ton of confluence. You can see those lines right there had a ton of confluence, and that was the secondary play. Looking for a continuation higher, gets a lower high, and then of course it gets into chop, and then the trade fizzles out. So that's where that stands. And then yesterday we did not finish at 44.04. We finished near highs. We ended up pushing to the 15 on the dot, I would have been happy. Basically scenario one ended here with it coming back to 44.04. The goal is not to be right. The goal is just to have a plan and to see how the market treats that plan. That was yesterday. Delta was positive for the entire session. Pretty strong close, pretty bullish close. So the expectation is the overnight session is likely to push that high. And what we got in the overnight session, let's clean this up. What we got in the overnight session is we did push that high. So we have a Globex high of 44.1675 in yesterday's session close. In today's overnight session, it's 44.16. So it's a point above the all-time high. So we have a Globex high at 16 and an RTH or day session high at 15. And then from there, it's all just downhill. And you notice the Asian session right here, the Asian session has been a seller. Again, if you have not looked at the Chinese stocks, it's not a pretty picture over there. It's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad scene. We have what is basically a V bottom, just like yesterday. We dip sometime in the overnight session around 4 or 5 my time, and then we start rallying again. We saw the same thing. And so what do we have here? Let me turn these lines on again. What do we have here? We have a market that is trading on top of the point of control the prior day, the black line right there, or the maroon line for the full session. We have a market that's sitting right on top of the overnight point of control. So the overnight point of control and yesterday's point of control are right up against each other. So the most traded price overnight and the most traded price in yesterday's day session are one and the same, or well, within a couple of ticks of each other. And then on top, and that's where the market is currently. Market's trading at 44.0350. It's where the market is currently, which is on top of mid and full session VWAP. So we have yesterday's point of control, today's overnight point of control. We have today's mid and today's VWAP all overlapping each other in this area. We're opening in a murky area this morning with volume being relatively strong. We're at 204,000 contracts or so right now, and we're coming into the day session kind of loaded. We're loaded for today's session. I believe this session is likely to give us some pretty good opportunity on the open. There's a little bit of resistance above. There's not much to speak of in terms of structure above, and there's a decent amount of support below in that we have this low volume node and this top right here. Full session VWAP at 44. We have the century figure at 4,400 below us, and we are just above. So if we open, and it looks weakish looking at the order flow, if we open and we test down and we don't sell off strong, we're looking for support. We're looking for, I wish I could run, I need to make a quick time lapse or something, or a sped up video of what it looks like for it to base, when the market starts basing and it's hitting the bid, and there's a lot of energy going into that bid, but it's not breaking through. It's like imagine you have a spring and you push down on it, and you're putting a lot of force pushing down on it. What happens when your hand gets weak, or you take off some of your weight? That spring causes a strong push up. That, in a nutshell, is what order flow is all about. You're looking for those areas where the spring is being compressed. You're looking to trade the other way, and that's what that's all about. It's like a rubber band being pulled, I guess. But no, actually, the spring is better because it is compression and there's energy being built up to go the opposite way, and that's what I'll be looking for this morning. Delta negative in today's session against the open, which makes sense. The open is above us. Delta, the zero line of the delta, is above us, and we're seeing the sell side more dominant. So let me pull up my composite. Here's what we've done. We've left this gap below us, which is still showing a weakness in the structure. The structure is relatively weak. I talked about multiple kind of weak points. They looked like gaps yesterday because I was on the wrong session, but we have multiple weak structures below us in what was a bullish engulfing day, week last week. And we've put in new highs and we've closed. Look at how fat this candlestick is. Very few wicks, very little wicks. There's a one tick below and there's a couple ticks above, and it's very stocky. And we're opening below the mid of that candle. We're opening below the mid of yesterday's action. So if this thing starts to rotate lower to take out yesterday's low, which you have to pay attention to, again, pay attention to yesterday's low, as it will end the one time framing that started last Monday, a week ago. If it takes it out, we have some really great targets below us, because if it does take it out, it gets us below 4,400 and it gives us an opportunity to get down into that 43.71, which from where we are now is about 35 points, So we're looking for that weakness to show up, and we're looking for acceleration to the sell side. Look for a pullback to get short, pressing for 43.71 and the gap zone fill below. So that's how things are set up. It's finishing strong, but if it reverses today, it's likely to take a lot of traders by surprise. Let's take a look at what's expected here for today. Let me check something. Here. So here's some of the weak structure I was trying to show you. Look at what happened here as we push higher, and we have these big prints on the buy side. This is the kind of compression I'm talking about here. There's a red dot right behind there, and it tried to push down, and then suddenly there's a big lift, And as it climbs up, there's another big lift, and then sellers come in and hold this inside. And even though the sellers came in and tried to hold it inside, it still popped higher, causing more pain for those who are short. And then when it retested a lower high on the retest of the 4408, which was the prior session's the prior week's high. So lower high, and then despite buying in this zone, you can see the big blue dots, it is selling off, and that's why I'm saying it's looking kind of weak coming in. The order flow looks weak coming into the open of the session. Very important. This is kind of the kind of information. This is the kind of information that that is useful on a very short time frame when you're ready to engage with the market. The order flow is quite important. Looking at the heat map, looking up and down the heat map, there's really not all that much going on up here. Looking at the order flow across the board, you can see there aren't many dark lines. There's the book, which it's been like this for a couple months now. It's not preloaded. It changes dramatically once the market opens. But we used to see ahead of time where standing flow is, and generally it sits at the 5 handle mark. So 10 would have some size, 215, 15, 267, 20 would have some size, not really. And so on. But lately, it's just been very thin in the order book. And by the way, the overnight low, very weak. Look at that print. It printed a lot on the overnight low, giving us another opportunity to start to look for that low to be broken. Here's how the session has played out. Very little activity in terms of large order flow coming in here. I'm expecting the open to be quite busy. Let's get down to the business of looking at what's planned for this session here. Here's what we're looking at for today. Let's get our green going. Traders love green. So again, yesterday's point of control, today's overnight point of control, right there. It's hard to see. The full session mid and VWAP right there. We're tapping it from above. We're kind of sitting right on top of that full session VWAP and mid. And there are quite a few stock zone areas up here to contend with. So what I'm looking for this morning is an open auction in range, in value. What does that mean? We're looking for it to chop because it's in the fat part of yesterday's profile. I'm looking for it to attempt higher over the 44.08 quarter, which is last week's high and last week's all-time high. Looking for it to fail as it did here, to take it, and I'm looking for it to migrate through the point of control that we put in down here in the stock zone, bounce around in this area, and then give in. And I'm looking for this overnight low to be taken out for the overnight stat. So we get below 4,400. I'm looking for acceleration to the downside. At that point, we will have taken out yesterday's low at 43.97, day session low, and starting to attack the thin part of yesterday's profile. Target being 71. 71 is the target. This is the big area. If we do sell off, I'm expecting it to, I'm seeing weakness across the board in terms of breadth. I'm seeing that it's not able to, that the market's making new highs, but it's not really seeing a broad participation by the underlying equities. So I'm looking for this to clean up a little bit, clean up some of the structure. So I'm looking for it to turn over and push the low. The top of this is expected to be last week's high 08, 08, 09 area. 08, let's put the O in front of it so we know what it's referencing. 08, 09 down to 71, giving us about 40 points of range, which is very, very doable in a sell-off. That's the primary scenario. Not saying mortgage your house up and leverage your account and sell it. Again, futures are not suitable for all investors, but the secondary is an attempt at that test area below. The 4,400 gets into the 98 or so, which is where we open, consolidates, puts in a higher low as the sellers fail to take this down back into yesterday's point of control chop area, and then we start to squeeze. And in that situation, we would be taking out the overnight high for the overnight stat and then starting to move towards the next measured move zone above the 16, which is at the 27. So I'm looking for this 27 area to be the top from the 98 area. That's in line with the most recent daily ranges. That's scenario 2. Almost mirror opposite of each other. It's just a function of, is there still money to be deployed on a dip, or is money resting a little bit, moving into cash a little bit, moving into safety a little bit, and then that would give us an opportunity to clear up some of the structure below. Market opens in 2 minutes. Sorry this has been so long, but there's a lot going on here, and I believe that today is likely to provide some pretty decent opportunity. Good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Don't forget, I am gone starting Thursday through next Tuesday. Thursday the 29th through Tuesday the 4th. There will not be any trader bites. For Convergent members, your NQ, ES levels will be up to date. And of course, all the other products, CL, GC, RTY, all of that will be updated by other contributors. So you'll get the levels, but I will not be doing a trader bite on those days. Good luck.